Manchester United 5. Andy Brassell's Lyon 4. 7-6 on aggregate. Bugger me with every fish fork you can find, Jim Campbell. What an ending to that game.
Yeah, I mean, that was the Man United's comeback was the best comeback I've seen since Lyon's comeback about 10 minutes before it. It was absolutely absurd. Just what an incredible evening that was. I know that, Andy, you were actually there. Have you been to sleep? Has the adrenaline worn off?
It's been hard. There's no doubt about it. It's just still quite hard to get your head around. It's funny. A friend who has a season ticket in the Stretford end sent me a video of him and his mates celebrating the 5th goal, and obviously they're all going absolutely apeshit. Apart from one, who's just stood there like scratching his chin, and I think that sums it up perfectly. It's just bizarre. It's very, very hard to make sense of, but amazing.
Andy, you're the only Lyon fan I know, so you must be gutted, bruv.
Yeah.
Sort of. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It still felt like it was an incredible night to be part of.
When you witness greatness like that, Andy, you can't deny it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was also tempered by, I guess, two things. Firstly, I didn't think Lyon played anywhere near well enough over the two legs to win the tie. And secondly, I guess it was the 4-2 goal. That, for me, was the turning point, the Lacazette penalty, because Lyon celebrated like they'd won it.
Yeah.
And
name on the trophy.
Oh, exactly. And it was really interesting because there were 18 people inside Old Trafford who thought they'd won it. Mm-hmm. And everyone else. You had Paulo Fonseca on the touchline. I don't know if you could see this on the TV, but he was standing on the touchline, just telling everyone to calm down. No one was listening to him. The two centre-backs, Mata and Niakate, were like facing the away end, like punching the air like this, while United were waiting to kick off. And you just had a little feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
And once they got the third, you knew it was on.
Oh, hang on. So you've said two things there, Andy. So when Bruno Fernandes puts that penalty away, yeah, fine. But when Lacazette scores that penalty, you said there was 18 people who thought they'd won the game in Old Trafford. There were millions of people around the world who also thought they'd won that game when that penalty goes in.
Maybe, but I'm talking about the feeling inside the stadium. Obviously, I'm taking away the people who, when the penalty was given, all started to walk. Because loads of people left when the penalty was given, before Lacazette had even scored it. And I thought that was really interesting because it's just like after everything that has happened to United and with United this season, all those fans who could have been a lot harsher on them actually, they've just I can't deal with any more of this.
Yeah.
And it was funny. Amorim said something along the lines of, "I felt sorry for the people who had to leave at 4-2 because of the traffic." Yeah, that's why they left.
Oh man, it was sensational. I mean, it's a great comeback. And all the more unlikely because of how bad Manchester United have been this season by their own standards. And even within post-Ferguson standards, this has been a poor season in the league domestically, of course.
Well, it's their worst Premier League season ever, isn't it, already?
Indeed. So there you are, Jim. The facts back that up. And the fact is that they were poor in this game. You know, Lyon down to 10 men, Manchester United 2-0 up on the night. They let them back in, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But it's all because of that. It seemed all the more unlikely. And Luke Shaw's reaction when he gave away that penalty, it was like, oh blimey, what have I done? And when Bruno Fernandes scored, I mean, the scenes were just incredible. Manchester United became the first team in history to score 2 goals in the 120th minute of a major European game. And
I'm really happy for them that one of those stats has finally gone their way.
Do you know what I mean? Normally it's a case of, when it's the first time that, ex-Premier League side has scored 3 goals at Old Trafford in their history, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's a very niche stat, as often stats are these days, but it's one that they're on the right side of. I mean, where to begin with this? They started well, Andy. They had a 2-goal advantage on the night.
I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? That United are so fragile at the moment that they had everything went for them really in this game. Everything that could have gone for them went for them. I know you'll say because they were 2-0 up and they went down to 4-2, oh, United can't catch a break. I think that's the thing. They had loads of breaks and wasted a lot of them.
Well, the red card was.
So, I mean, they were given 2 goals in the first half. Lyon's most important player gets sent off for not even making a challenge.
Harsh sending off.
Really.
Yeah, ridiculous sending off.
The penalty that they get back into it at 3-4 is generous. I think
I thought it was a penalty.
It's fair
I thought
to
he's
say.
kicked Casemiro
I did as well.
I think it's generous. I mean, the referee didn't give it initially, and he had to look at it a couple of times. And I don't know. I don't think it's cast iron. Let's put it that way. And they end up playing against 10 men for ages, and still, that I think that the fourth goal is the fourth Lyon goal is so important, because I think if it stays 3-2, Lyon win it.
Yeah, because I can understand what you're saying there.
At that point, United are like, they're just, I can't believe this has happened.
Yeah.
But it's funny, Harry Maguire talked about it afterwards.
What a man.
He said them celebrating it like they'd won it was that little kick that we needed, really. And I think it was the bit where Lyon thought, oh, breathe out. And that allowed United to come back in. But the way they took it with both hands, and we always talk about momentum in, well, mainly the Champions League, but this is the same principle, isn't it, in the Europa League? And this was a great example of that. I mean, Lyon have always wanted to emulate PSG over the last 10 years, and now they've got their own Barcelona, haven't they?
I think it was very interesting to me, as you say, Andy, Lyon's attitude after they went 4-2 up, because it was almost like, because they'd scored 2 goals, it was like they'd forgotten they were down to 10, which might have been an incredible piece of 4D chess from Ruben Amorim. Just go out there and concede a couple, see what happens. It seems unlikely, though. But when you 4-2 up, why don't you just get everybody behind the ball? They were still essentially trying to get United on the break for all 3 goals there. I mean, obviously the winning goal happened in an instant, but their shape was essentially non-existent, just abstract, just all over the place. I could not believe that they essentially invited this. Now, obviously, Bruno Fernandes scores the penalty because he has to do everything around here. He's very much the Liz Lemon of Man United. But even after that, you think, all right, tighten up. Just go into the lowest block that you can conceive of. And they just don't. It was I couldn't believe it. And United fans must be obviously thrilled with the result. Thrilled to have pulled such a kind of triumphant moment from what would have been probably the silliest moment of their whole season, because they've been really good in Europe, still the only team unbeaten in it, despite how close they came to it last night in the Europa League. And it's just, is it too extreme to say it could be a galvanising moment for some of those players where you go, you know what, look what we can achieve.
I think
when we're in that feeling of like, oh God, here we go again.
I think it is, Jim, and I think it almost doesn't matter, because I think everything that United and their fans have been through over this season particularly, and I know we'll have fans of other clubs sitting there and going, oh, try being a Carlisle United fan or whatever. We're talking about, it's not a misery competition. We're talking about United's particular size, expectation, and where they are at the moment. I think the amazing thing about this night is all the other stuff, all the other context, where they're going financially, what it would have meant. And I think, again, Maguire, who's extremely eloquent, said, I can't even bear to think about what it would have happened if it'd have gone the other way when it was 4-2. Like, all those consequences don't really matter now, and it's just like Casemiro, for example. Casemiro, who looks like for most of this season has looked like the last player you would trust to take you through 120 minutes. He wins the pen and sets up the last 2.
Yeah,
and,
it's great.
He's like the last man standing. So I don't think that means that, oh, well, maybe this is the start for Casemiro. He's part of the problem at Manchester United, of course. He's kind of cooked, and it cost them a load of money. But all that stuff doesn't matter. It's not like going forward and saying, yeah, let's play Harry. Well, maybe it does mean let's go forward and play Harry Maguire up front. And I don't know about you guys, but I thought, well, imagine, actually, Jim, maybe don't imagine this when you go to sleep tonight, but imagine if Real Madrid had had Harry Maguire for the last 20 minutes against Arsenal.
They would have genuinely...
That would have been interesting.
Andy, hand on heart, I thought Luke and Vish, I might say they were a touch kind to Real Madrid, although maybe I wanted them to shout more at how crap Real Madrid were against Arsenal. But Andy, I'm not being funny. They would have genuinely been better off with Maguire up front. What they were reduced to. But that's a different game.
They put 42 crosses in.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Harry might have got on the end of about 30 of them.
Well, he would have got on the end of something. I mean, Amorim said he moved him up front because he's the only guy who can score with his head. And my goodness, didn't he just? It comes moments after Kobbie Mainoo scores a peach, and we know Mainoo's quality. Great to see him back on the pitch. And when Mainoo scores that one, I'm thinking to myself, don't lose this on penalties, lads. You know, like you've done such a job getting back into the game.
Yeah.
I thought they had to score the fifth because, you know, the tails are up, and I thought, don't go to penalties.
They're going to bring Matic on, right?
Yeah.
And then possibly the worst ending conceivable in terms of the narrative could happen if Matic gets the winner against Andre Onana.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. I mean, Onana ran to the dugout to hug Ruben Amorim in the celebrations. I think what's brilliant about those moments is it's like, we've been crap, we're all over. Yes, sod it, just bloody drink all of this in. I mean,
exactly.
You know, Amorim said himself, the sound of the stadium was the best ever. I want to keep that sound. It's the best sound in the world. That's what I want to collect, you know. It was just, the scenes of celebration was something else. To have that moment where everybody in that stadium will remember that forever, even if they go out in the next round, that was something else. It was absolute. I mean, how many great nights have we seen at Old Trafford over the years? How many amazing comebacks, all the way back to the famous night in Barcelona and all that. But how many times have we seen Manchester United do this? Yes, it seems a while ago now, but they have a moment there where they can reference that. And of course, scoring 3 goals in the last 6 minutes of extra time is not where you is not how you plan a game. All right, it was ridiculous that they were in that situation. The fact is, the mood swings all the way back round, and that mood swing in football and morale is so important. I don't think Manchester United is suddenly going to be playing wonderful football in the next round, and they're going to be a totally different side, but the belief and the mood is there, and that does count for something. They've got a tough task against Athletic Bilbao, who themselves were always going to be favourites against Rangers. Slightly fortuitous that Dessers didn't get an absolute stonewall penalty because his shirt was ripped to bits. How on earth that wasn't given as a penalty?
It literally had a hole in it.
I mean, he had all the evidence.
I was going to insert a joke about their kit manufacturer there, but probably not the moment, right?
Or do they have like...
I'm talking about their particular kit manufacturer.
Oh, is that right? Do they have those... what am I trying to say?
It's got a reputation for arms falling off and stuff.
Is it like... what is it in, like packets of stuff where they have the little... Is it like a perforated edge where you can rip it off easily? Is that what they have to sort of show the referee? Look,
it's happened again.
He's an absolute stonewaller. But anyway, getting back to Manchester United, for once this season, Manchester United fans have woken up with a big old spring in their step, and a bit like Tottenham. We're going to come on to Tottenham in just a sec. Win this competition, and it's an enormous boost. It's not a case of, we won that little piddly cup or whatever. No, this is a proper trophy to win, and the rewards are not just the silverware and the glory, bloody Champions League football.
Yeah,
now, one might say, they will get hammered in the Champions League next season. Well, that's not the point, because that may not be the case. It may be, but it may not be. But who you can attract player-wise,
the money from
etc. We all know the what could happen after that. So it's a fabulous, fabulous victory, and I do love the fact that Harry Maguire is this auxiliary target man now. It's glorious. Thomas Tuchel, are you bloody watching?
He's kind of United in microcosm, really. Like, cost way more than he should have, widely ridiculed, like beyond reason, really.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And he's just got on with it, and just he deserves to really grasp this moment. But it was funny. When I was walking out of Old Trafford, I was waiting at a crossing, and there were some United fans next to me, and after that, they were going, "Imagine we get to the final, we get Spurs, we beat Spurs in the final." We get into the Champions League. Next season, before match day 8 of the Champions League, we're in 25th place. and then we're here against someone. And it's like one of those nights where just anything seems possible. I mean, obviously the bloke did go on to say, like, imagine how triggered all other fans would be. I think he's right as well. But I think that was what was brilliant. Like, the context of everything falls away. It was just one amazing moment or one amazing 10 minutes to just be totally enjoyed.
Just bloody love it. We could have an all-English final, Jim, as Spurs.
I think we might.
Spurs beat Eintracht Frankfurt 1-0, a Dominic Solanke penalty. Eintracht Frankfurt fans had unveiled a giant banner before the game which read, "The Eagles are on the hunt." Well, they were beaten by the Cock, weren't they?
They were in quite a shock result in the kingdom of nature.
I actually felt Spurs. It's easy to be wise after the event, I appreciate, but I had hope for Spurs going into this because of the performance they put in.
I just think you wouldn't expect a cockerel to beat an eagle. I was just continuing your metaphor.
Oh, I see. Well, the cockerel had a bow and arrow, which Dominic Solanke fired at the eagle. The reason why I wasn't that shocked by this is because Spurs should have beaten Eintracht Frankfurt in the first leg,
and they've been really they've been sensible in Europe.
Yeah. Sensible is not a word we associate with this Tottenham Hotspur team this season, and I think that. Again, they've taken an enormous amount of flack, like Manchester United. I mean, it's such a similar season to Manchester United, of course, and there they are in the same stage of the same competition. Very similar seasons. Domestically, very, very poor. Quite clearly, though, the laser-sharp focus of both of these sides now, well, Spurs was a bit more because 1-0 is a far more controlled win than the hectic stuff we saw at Old Trafford. But it's all about this competition. And if Ange Postecoglou can win a trophy for Tottenham,
he said he would,
as he said he always does in his second season, it'll be massive. I understand the flack he's taken is justified because he's not covered himself in glory at times, and the performances, despite the injuries and all the rest of it, a lot of people, myself included, don't think they've been good enough. But the English media, let's be honest, can be a bit spiky. They can be a bit naughty.
It can revel in a person's misfortune.
Exactly, Jim. We're putting it mildly. So I genuinely do have a degree of sympathy with him, as I even did with Ten Hag and all the rest of it. Despite whether you think again their responses and their handling of the media was particularly good or not, but if he can deliver a trophy, it'll be a proper two fingers to everybody and go, right, see you later. I don't care if they want me to stay. I'm going. Sod ya.
That'd be funny.
It would be hilarious.
But firstly, will he do that? Because I think if he won the Europa League, he'd stay and they wouldn't fire him. And globally, I'm not saying that's the only thing wrong with Tottenham. I think that would be a bad thing for Tottenham.
I think he'd walk, Andy. I think he'd be like, I don't need this anymore. Here you go, sod.
Yeah,
do you not think it'd be
No, I don't think he would, though.
Do you not think it'd be funny, though, Andy, after all the chat and all the second season business, if he could manage to win them a trophy? My goodness, the grin would be back.
The reverse Mourinho.
You're right. But I don't know. I think this is like a good example of like it's easy for our responses to be written by the results sometimes, and Spurs going away in Europe against a team of standing and getting a 1-0 win when it feels like their backs are against the wall. Okay, it's great. It's great for them. Of course, it's a good thing for them. But like in the game, you think a slightly better team would have beaten them. Like
slightly better Rasmus Christensen, who missed 3 good chances.
Yeah, but like I mean, he's your right back, isn't he? I mean, you're looking at like
this is important, Andy. This is putting Spurs out of Europe. Every player's got to do their bit.
Yeah, come on, pull your weight. Yeah, but I think it sort of underlined exactly where they are without Marmoush. And then Götze gets injured, and that takes a little bit of the belief away from them as well. But I think to say that it was one of those ones where you look at it and you think, oh, okay, they've gone and got a 1-0 win away. Maybe Ange has changed. But I don't know. I don't think like they defended amazingly either. They allowed Eintracht quite a lot of clear chances, especially as the game went on, and a slightly better team takes advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey van der Ven had a really, really good tackle on Hugo Ekitike, which is essentially exactly the danger man you need to snuff out. So credit where it's due.
It's the kind of sprint and recovery tackle that Spurs have been badly missing this season because it was an extraordinary piece of play from Van der Ven.
That's his superpower, isn't it?
Yeah, for crying out loud, don't do that again anytime soon because your hammy will go. Because that was amazing.
Yes.
Before the game, Postecoglou said he had no idea if he will be coach at Spurs next season. I think he's in that zone, isn't he? He's just like, yeah, fine, whatever. Just
he's probably bored of talking about it.
But isn't that what's made these two games and the situation so thrilling? Because it's like the NBA playoffs. It's win or go home. Because I think it's quite easy to believe that if Spurs had lost last night, Spurs would probably be releasing a statement 5 minutes after we release this show.
Yeah.
Given normal timing, and it's like United. If they'd have lost in extra time, season over. And where they go from that, who knows?
It's so fascinatingly poised now, isn't it? Because obviously Spurs now play Bodø Glimt, and on paper that is, you think, all right, Bodø Glimt have done a brilliant job at getting into this situation, and they're an incredible story in Europe. But you would think surely this will be a stretch too far for them playing a Premier League team, even one in the doldrums. So it's a great chance for Spurs to get to that final. Man United have a tougher assignment in Athletic Bilbao, but obviously if you're not playing a Spanish team in a final, you can actually beat them. Yes. Whereas it seems to be impossible in a final itself. So they're two really, really fascinating, interesting games. And if it's a Man United Spurs Europa League final, that is going to be so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, Manchester United and Spurs, everybody knows that this Europa League, they can save their season. And it would be a saving. It's not glossing over it slightly and so on. It really would be saving it because with Spurs, haven't won a trophy for so long. And with Manchester United getting back in the Champions League, blah, 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 we know it all. But only one of them can win it, and neither of them might not win it, of course. But if you offered Spurs a semi-final against Bodø Glimt, no disrespect for Bodø Glimt, in the Europa League, my goodness, they would chomp all of your body parts off for it.
Absolutely.
I mean,
they go full Luis Suarez.
They absolutely would. who bit his own teammate the other day, didn't he? Quite incredibly.
Yeah, well, he went to. But then he realised it was his teammate and he decided to hold off. So a man's got to have a code, and I guess the code is only bite strangers. That's true, yeah. He showed a bit of rare restraint, but I won't give him credit for it. But I mean, Bodø Glimt are the first Norwegian team in history to reach the semi-final of a European competition, and with Lazio scoring late on to take it into extra time, and then going ahead 3-0, for them to pull that out the bag and to win on penalties shows you that they are there on merit, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But it's a different assignment to Lazio because they're Spurs. I think it's a tough. Lazio are a bigger name, and so you could be overawed a little bit by that, or I don't know, whatever. Whereas Bodø Glimt, the task is not to go, oh well, we've got to buy into the final here, chaps. They're pretty fearless, aren't they, Bodø Glimt?
Well, they are, because that you don't get to a semi-final if you've got a bit of fear in there. Well, unless you're Manchester United and Spurs, perhaps. But Athletic Bilbao is a tougher test for Manchester United, and a lot of people would have Athletic Bilbao as favourites for this, Andy. Going
in their own stadium, of course, the final as well.
Yeah.
So there's a huge motivation for them to get there. Look, I mean, David Cartledge said weeks ago they're the best team left in it, and he's right. But as we said, it doesn't really matter at this stage, I think. Obviously, it feels like a tougher task for Manchester United, but what Jim was saying about Bodø Glimt not quitting, I think the context is important, because these teams are, and we're seeing it from some of the matches, are quite knackered. But I think what's the interesting thing is Bodø Glimt have only just started their season. So if there's one thing they can do, it's extra time and staying the course. And they're physically going to be fresher than Spurs. There's no doubt about that. Also wanted to have a word for Andreas Helmersson, who came at best sub turn ever for Bodø Glimt. So when it's 1-0 to Lazio in normal time, he in stoppage time, he misses a sitter in the 6-yard box. Lazio go up the other end and score to make it 2-0 and take it into extra time. Then Lazio go 3-0 up. Then Helmersson pulls it back to make it level on aggregate. Then when you think he's going to score the winning penalty, he gets sent off in the last minute of extra time. And the goalkeeper has to win it for him.
Blimey. Chelsea also like Spurs, will face Scandinavian opposition in the semi-final of European competition. They're playing Djurgården. They beat Legia Warsaw on aggregate, although Legia Warsaw won 2-1 at Stamford Bridge last night. The entire away end were topless. I mean, it was a reasonably mild night in London last night, but always good to see lots of topless men in a football stadium behaving themselves. We could have a clean sweep of London clubs in European competition. Jim, would you take that now? Because it would mean Spurs and Chelsea winning trophies as well. You have to take it, surely.
If it guarantees Arsenal win the Champions League, I have to, don't I?
Yeah. Don't be petty. Just take your Champions League trophy home with you. All right, coming up after this, Jacob Murphy continues to make his case for an England call-up. We're going on tour, everybody. The Football Ramble time tunnel is coming to a city near you. Glasgow, Newcastle, Birmingham, Manchester and London between the 9th of May and the 17th of May. Click on the link that's just appeared in the top right-hand corner of this video and get your tickets. Don't delay. Get one today.
Ollie, I know it's half-time in the tie, but that's an incredible advantage. Do you feel like the job is done?
No, I don't feel the job is done, but it was a good job done.
Welcome back to the Football Ramble, everybody. Now, back to the Premier League, where we all enjoy bread and butter. Aston Villa versus Newcastle on Saturday at 5:30. Newcastle United beat Crystal Palace 5-0 on Wednesday night. Jacob Murphy got a beauty. A peach of a goal, which he definitely... I was surprised there was any debate about that. He clearly meant to shot.
Agreed.
Yeah, you can see him look at it.
He clearly meant to shoot, is what I clearly meant to say there. But he got a goal and an assist. That's 3 goals and 4 assists in his last 5 matches. 19 goal involvements this season, as we say these days. And teammate Harvey Barnes has said he's going to join the petition to get him in the England squad. And presumably Harvey will set up one for himself as well, Jim.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But yeah, I mean, it's on form. It's absolutely deserved, isn't it? I mean, one of the good things for a player like Jacob Murphy, who is a little bit older, is that Tuchel is only going to do this job for a little while. You know, there is probably very little sense of kind of succession planning from Tuchel himself. It's very much here and now. So Murphy's put himself in a really, really good position to show he's a player who can make an impact right here and right now.
There's a fair bit of competition for people.
There is.
But what I like about Jacob Murphy, Andy, he's a right footer playing on that right side. And look what you can do, everybody,
for the traditionalists.
When you have a bit of tradition back in there. I mean, look at the results and the stats speak for themselves.
Yeah, I look, he's amazing. He's riding the crest of a wave at the moment, and you know what? He's kind of a tribute to Eddie Howe as well, because he's one of a number of players who, let's be honest, didn't really even convince people that they were Premier League quality when Howe arrived at the club. So obviously they've had enormous investment, and that's made a difference, particularly at the beginning of his time in charge. But I think you have to look at Eddie Howe and the way he's coached players, and the way he's made every single player there. And I know everyone looks at the Joe Linton thing because obviously he moved position, he's turned him into a different sort of player. But I think the players who looked as if they were squad ballast and now have become like massively important, accomplished Premier League players. I mean, that's proper coaching, isn't it? The
fact of the matter is, even when Howe's not there, and we hope he makes a recovery quickly, Jason Tindall steps in and and the goals are flowing. He's having a lovely old time as the top dog, his old mad dog at Newcastle United at the moment. But Newcastle moved third with that win, of course. 5 points separate Aston Villa, who are in 7th, and Newcastle United. There's a big game, of course. Newcastle are the form team in the Premier League. No one else has won all of their last 5. And they, after that League Cup victory, they want more. They absolutely want more. They want to get back into the Champions League. They're on for it. You wouldn't bet against them. But Villa themselves, Andy, after that, near incredible comeback against Paris Saint-Germain, they'll want to get back in there. This will be very, very interesting how Villa respond, because certainly earlier on in the season, after the Champions League games, much was made of their dip in form or performance straight after a Champions League game in the Premier League. Whereas now it's a tough task of picking themselves up after a very, very emotional night where it didn't quite go their way. They've got a huge task now to get back into the Champions League. It's possible, and a visit from Newcastle United is probably not what they would have wanted after that game against Paris Saint-Germain.
No, not ideal. And like you said, they have found it hard to recover from Champions League games to go into Premier League games. And as you say as well, I think the physical and emotional outpouring of that night on Tuesday night was unbelievable. It was like just an absolute tidal wave of emotion, really. But I guess what they do have in their favour, and we saw it, I think we've seen it all in 2025, is more of a squad to call on. Now, whether they'll have that squad to call on next season, because obviously it's enormously expensive, bringing in Rashford and Asensio, and we don't know whether that's a permanency yet. But being able to do that, being able to presumably start Ollie Watkins and Asensio at the weekend, is a massive boost as well. But I do kind of feel that this is bigger for Villa than it is for Newcastle, not just because they're coming off the back of that Champions League game. They want to preserve that feeling. They want to get back in there, and they're a bit behind, of course. It's the fact that if you look at Newcastle's fixtures, if they win their home games, they're there. There's no doubt about that. So they have Ipswich, Chelsea and Everton coming to St James's Park. You fancy them to win all of those, and if they win those, they're home and hosed.
Yeah, I agree with you. Villa a point off Manchester City in fifth. It's important for them, Jim, because as you say, Newcastle are there. I still expect Forest to finish in the top five.
I think Forest will be the one that Villa will be targeting, though.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting tie, as Andy's alluded to, and possibly it's the last thing you want as a Villa right now. Newcastle beating them comfortably in the last three meetings, and obviously they're just giddy, aren't they? And they've got their eyes on the prize. They could finish second. They'll be targeting that because they still have to play Arsenal. They've beaten Arsenal 3 times this season comfortably as well. Arsenal have to go to Anfield, and that gives Newcastle a real opportunity to get second, and they will be looking at that. So Villa are in the way of that. So yeah, with the sort of Champions League kind of hangovers they've had a little bit, that might. This is going to be a really, really interesting game because Villa have to stand up and really kind of repel the kind of most irresistible attacking force in the Premier League, by which I mean Jacob Murphy.
Yeah, could Aston Villa play the Europa League anthem again before the game to confuse everybody?
Yeah,
that
why
would be quite
not?
something, because obviously that was accidentally played just before the home tie against PSG. And the club and UEFA sources say the automated system responsible for playing the anthem crashed and was overridden by another system. Ooh, it's all getting a bit spooky, Andy, with all these...
That was clear that was happening because they couldn't turn it off.
Yeah.
So you could see the look. Fans were looking at each other. Journalists were looking at each other. Obviously, going down the line, the players were a bit... What's going on here? So and then because it started playing as they come out onto the pitch, like the way it happens when it's a Europa League game, they have a little soft launch of the music while the players are coming out, and then they play it full whack once they're actually lined up and the camera comes down. So it was obvious it was coming, and you're like, are they going to cut it off? And it was clear they couldn't cut it off.
It's up to the robots, Andy.
Exactly.
You can't win anything with robots. Welcome back to Football Ramble, everybody. Liverpool host Leicester on Sunday afternoon, and Virgil van Dijk, the captain himself, has signed a new 2-year contract. His contract had been set to expire at the end of the season, of course, but he said, it was always in my head, it was always the plan, and it was always Liverpool. Andy Brassel, this is not a surprise.
He tried very hard not to let the cat out of the bag last weekend, but he pretty much did let the cat out of the bag, didn't he? Where he said, I can't say. And did a sort of Ancelotti eyebrow to the camera, didn't he? Oh, sorry, a Speller-esque eyebrow to the camera.
Yeah.
But look, I think it's good for Liverpool, but I don't think anyone's under any illusions that they need to buy at least one centre-back this summer going forward as well. So I think it feels to me like retaining Van Dijk and Salah is, as the season has gone on, I think maybe people have come to understand that it's not about, so much preserving a glorious era as, I guess, smoothing over the transition to the next one, maybe. Yeah. It feels like that, or certainly has felt like that in the last couple of months.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that it's just such a huge figure at that club. I mean, in the club's history, for crying out loud, but certainly in the here and now as well. And I think you're right, Andy. I think, Jim, you might agree that if they'd have lost them, there could have been a sense of panic or a sense of some of the players there going, hang on a minute, where have these two guys gone? Because, he's not getting any younger, but such a huge presence. And if they were to sign another centre-half, what a man to help bed that person into the club.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good for a number of reasons. One of those being that it's said, isn't it, that you're never more than 6 feet from a rat. So this might be a sort of useful example of loyalty to any who happen to be nearby.
We should specify that you're never 6 feet away from a rat in London, perhaps other cities in the UK as well. But
I think that's actually a myth. I think it's spiders, but it doesn't matter.
Obviously, it's a myth. Look around your house.
Well, indeed, yeah.
But don't look in the walls.
But anyway, he is he's part of the architecture of that team, isn't he? And losing him it replaces or it requires the replacement of so much of the reference point of their entire kind of defensive setup. Really, he's the best defender in the Premier League, and he's not a player who really relies too much on pace, is he? He marshals his defence around him really well. We've spoken a lot about his aura before and how players kind of think twice about even taking him on. All these things about him that give them so much presence there. And I think because he is that type of player, over that 2-year contract, I can't imagine we're going to see a sort of a big decline in how he plays, because he's almost statuesque at times, isn't he? So it's a huge thing. It saves them a lot of money. I'm sure it's going to cost them a lot of money as well in its own way, but it makes Slot's life so much easier to not have to replace one of the icons of the club in his second season.
And Liverpool can win the league this weekend if they beat Leicester, which you would fancy them to do, even though Liverpool have not been brilliant of late, but come on. And Arsenal lose to Ipswich Town, which, again, seems unlikely, but they can do it. And if they won the league this weekend, after Salah and Van Dijk have just signed contract, it would be quite something.
It'd be a nice weekend on Merseyside.
It certainly would be. Leicester themselves will be relegated if they fail to win this game, as West Ham will be too far ahead in 17th. So, I mean, that just puts Leicester out of their misery, really, doesn't it, Andy?
Yeah.
Does it? They've still got the rest of the season to play.
True. Well, they'll probably go on a tear. You know what it's like when teams are already relegated? They suddenly go, let's start winning games.
Yeah, probably. Although in their case, it will be under a caretaker manager, won't it? Because clearly, the minute they get relegated, they're firing Van Nistelrooy. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with him next.
He'll be put out of his misery.
Weird little managerial career. Yeah, he will be. But it's funny because I think if you look at the teams that are going to get relegated, I think Ipswich will be in the promotion mix next season, especially if they hold on to Kieran McKenna, which isn't a given, obviously, because I think there'll be interest in him from other clubs. But I don't know. I just can't see Leicester or Southampton coming back in a hurry. Even recognising the fact that there's a growing gap between the Premier League and the Championship. Like Southampton and Leicester are in a mess in so many ways. It's going to take, I think, ages to undo some of the damage incurred this season. Whereas Ipswich were kind of playing with house money in the Premier League and spent a lot of it on their future team, obviously, because they went out there and spent quite a lot of money. But that is going to put them, I think, in quite a good position when they try and get promoted again next season.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. We fully expect a Liverpool victory that afternoon. Now, gentlemen, staying with Liverpool things, if you like, have you heard this little rumour that Jurgen Klopp is being linked to Real Madrid? Carlo Ancelotti is expected to leave Real Madrid at the end of the month, after the Cup final, quite oddly. I know that there's huge, or there's reports that are linking him to the Brazil national team job, and all that kind of stuff. Which, I mean, it seems a bit mad because they're still in the title race with Barcelona. Obviously, they've got that cup final against Barcelona, so all very strange. But this is Real Madrid, for crying out loud. But Jurgen Klopp, some are suggesting he's open to joining Real Madrid.
Yeah, it's difficult to find a source of specifically who these people are, isn't it? Which gives you pause for thought.
Not too many reputable sources or publications are going with this, but there is a little rumour flying around, and it's caused a bit of stir on socials. Some people are suggesting that no way could they see Jurgen Klopp at Real Madrid. What do you think, Andy?
Well, I just think as he's wanted to step out of top line coaching into something less stressful. I mean, what's the last job you'd want to take? I mean, I don't understand how it would work. I suppose it's different. It's kind of like Saudi money. If you get off, it's fine to say you would never do it if you're not getting offered it. But if you finally get offered it and Real Madrid want you to be their coach, I mean, look, there have been lots of coaches with lots of jobs before who've thought, well, this isn't the sensible thing to do, but your pride makes you do it. And, you know, that would be the only possible reason, I suppose. With Ancelotti, like, Brazil want a new coach in before their next qualifiers, which is why there's some sort of urgency. And obviously they've been pushing for him for a while. They sacked Dorival Jr. Some weeks back, not before time. And, talking of jumping from the frying pan into the fire, because Brazil are in a bit of a state at the moment. But, be an interesting 4 months for him.
It certainly will. It certainly will.
And now it's time for this.
Dean Smith also says you're an encyclopedia of football.
A what?
An encyclopedia of football.
I don't know what that means.
Yes, it's Jack's Encyclopaedia. Last week, I beat Marcus 2-1. I'm in the hosting chair this week, so there's no chance of that unless I cheat, I suppose, but I'm not going to do that. It's a simple game of categories, if you've not heard it before. If you go too slow, I will play Gary Neville, pushing away from tumescence, and that will leave you 7 seconds to get your answer in. So are you both ready for your first category?
Tumescence is the new Real Madrid midfielder, isn't he?
Right, I'm going to take that as you being ready. So, first category, players who started the 2006 Champions League final between Arsenal and Barcelona. There are 22 answers. Marcus, I'm going to go with you first because you sulk if I don't.
Thanks. He wasn't on the pitch that long, but Jens Lehmann.
Correct.
Matthew Flamini.
Matthew Flamini is not there, Andy. He came off the bench. It was actually Ashley Cole who began as left back. I believe Flamini came on as the left back. Yeah.
You see, what I've done there is I've hung around with Jim so much that I've actually erased Ashley Cole from Arsenal history. So that's what the problem is.
Yeah, sorry, mate. It's my fault,
Flamini was the left back in that final in my heart.
I'll go for the Arsenal team for you, Jim, that day. Lehmann in goal, Ashley Cole left back, Sol Campbell, and it would have been Kolo Touré centre half.
So far, so good.
Right back was Emmanuel Aboué.
Man.
You'd had in the midfield, you've got Pires, Fabregas, Vieira, and Lundberg.
No Vieira.
Oh, no Vieira. Oh, no, of course it wasn't. It was Gilberto Silva.
It was.
And then it was Burke? No, Bergkamp. Oh, actually, I'm all confident. No. Obviously, Henry up front.
Yep.
And
the player you're scrambling around for is Alexander Hleb.
Yes, Alexander Hleb. Yeah, absolutely. Because it went to Barcelona not long after that.
Yes, and for Barcelona, he had Carlos Puyol, Deco, Edmilson, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, Ludovic Giuly, loved Ludovic Giuly, Mark Van Bommel, Oleguer, Rafa Marquez, Ronaldinho, Samuel Eto'o, and of course in goal, Victor Valdez. Yeah. So, Marcus, you win that round. So, Andy, it's over to you for round 2, and that category is Man United's 12 all-time top goal scorers in Europe.
Oh.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
He is, of course, there with 24 goals.
Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Ruud van Nistelrooy is present with 38 goals.
Yeah.
George Best.
Oh, Andy, George Best is not there.
Andy Brassel. I'll have... that's a tough one because it could be anybody. Andrew Cole.
Marcus Speller wins.
Andy Brassel. Betrayed by another Andy, in a way. Marcus wins. So you could also have had Bobby Charlton, Bruno Fernandes, David Beckham, Dennis Law, Marcus Rashford, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, or Wayne Rooney. Andy, that was terrible.
Wiped out by two Marcuses, Speller and Rashford, working in unison.
That is...
Andy, how do you explain yourself? I mean, you too many chocolate eggs before this one?
Never apologise,
Distracted.
never explain. That's my motto.
90s and noughties and Bruno Fernandes. That's what you wanted to Well, they're nice to have a Marcus Rashford in there.
Yeah, always nice to have a Marcus in here, so we keep being told.
Yeah.